The stars outside the observation window looked like scattered diamonds against black velvet. Danny Cole stood at his post near the airlock, his hand resting on the weapon at his hip, watching the alien shuttle approach the human vessel. He had been a security officer for 7 years now, and he had seen many strange things in the depths of space, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen. The diplomatic ship Starward Hope was one of humanity's finest vessels. It carried ambassadors, scientists, and cultural experts whose job was to make friends with alien species. Danny's job was much simpler. He kept people safe. He watched for danger. He acted when others hesitated. Today, the ship was welcoming a delegation from the Ascendancy, one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy. They had existed for millions of years before humans had even learned to use fire. They had built empires that spanned hundreds of star systems. They had technology that seemed like magic to human eyes. And they had rules, so many rules. Captain Barbara had briefed the entire crew 3 times about customs. Do not make direct eye contact with royalty unless they speak to you first. Do not touch without permission. Do not refuse food or drink if it is offered. Do not ask about their religion, their mating customs, or their death rituals. Danny had memorized all of it, but he was not worried about customs. He was worried about security. They were not universally loved, even among their own kind. There were factions within their society that hated humans, that saw the younger species as a threat to be eliminated rather than a friend to be welcomed. The shuttle docked with a soft thump. Danny straightened his uniform and watched as the airlock cycled open. The first through the door was tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Colors rippled across his flesh in patterns that Danny had learned to recognize as formal greeting. This was Ambassador L, the leader of the delegation. Behind him came guards, advisors, and servants, all moving with the fluid grace that made seem like they were dancing rather than walking. Their large eyes, amber and gold and bronze, took in everything with ancient curiosity. And then she appeared. Princess Ha was younger than the others, her features softer, her movements less controlled. She was beautiful in a way that transcended species, with delicate features and skin that shifted through colors like a sunset over an alien ocean. She wore robes of silver and purple that flowed around her like living things, and her eyes were the color of honey held up to sunlight. Danny felt something shift in his chest when he looked at her. It was not attraction, not exactly. It was more like recognition, as if some part of him had been waiting his whole life to see her face. He pushed the feeling aside. He was a professional, he had a job to do. The reception began smoothly. Captain welcomed the delegation with carefully rehearsed words. Ambassador L responded with equally careful phrases. The 2 groups moved into the observation lounge, where food and drink had been prepared for both species. Danny took up his position near the wall, watching the crowd with practiced eyes. He noted the positions of every guard, the exits, the potential cover if shooting started. He was not expecting trouble, but he was always ready for it. The princess moved through the gathering like a fish through water, graceful and curious and slightly nervous. Danny could see it in the way her skin flickered with colors that did not match her calm expression. She was young, he realized. Young and far from home and trying very hard to seem confident. He found himself watching her more than he should. An hour passed, then 2. The reception was going well. Humans and mingled awkwardly but peacefully, exchanging gifts and stories and careful compliments. Danny began to relax just a little. That was when he noticed the male. He was dressed in the robes of a minor servant, standing at the edge of the crowd near the refreshment tables. Nothing about him should have caught Danny's attention, but something did. Something in the way he held himself, the way his eyes kept moving to the princess, the way his hand kept touching his belt. Danny had seen that look before. He had seen it in the eyes of desperate men who had nothing left to lose. He had seen it in the moments before violence erupted. He started moving before he consciously decided to. His feet carried him across the room, weaving between guests, his hand moving toward his weapon. The male saw him coming and his skin flashed with panic colors. Everything happened very fast. The male drew something from his belt, a blade made of crystal that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. He lunged toward the princess, who stood with her back turned, talking to a human scientist about the differences between their stars. Danny did not think. He did not calculate odds or consider consequences. He simply moved. He threw himself between the princess and the blade. He felt the crystal slice through his uniform, through his skin, through the muscle of his shoulder and down across his back. The pain was incredible, like being burned and frozen at the same time. He hit the assassin with his full weight, driving them both to the floor. His wounded arm screamed in protest, but he kept his grip on the male's wrist, kept the blade away from the princess, kept fighting even as his blood pooled on the polished floor. Security swarmed the room. Shouts filled the air in 2 languages. Hands grabbed the assassin, pulled him away, restrained him with bonds that glowed with energy. Danny lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, feeling his life leak out of him with every heartbeat. The pain was fading now, replaced by a cold numbness that he knew was not a good sign. A face appeared above him, the princess. Her skin was cycling through colors so fast that she looked like a living rainbow. Her hands pressed against his wounds, warm and soft and trembling. She was speaking, but not in any language Danny knew. The words were old, ancient, filled with power that seemed to vibrate in his bones. He felt something strange happening, something that went beyond his wounds, beyond his body, beyond anything he understood. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was her eyes, amber and gold and filled with tears. Danny woke in a room that was not on the starward hope. He knew this immediately because the walls were wrong. They curved upward like the inside of a shell, made of something that looked like pearl but glowed with soft inner light. The bed beneath him was too comfortable, conforming to his body in ways that human technology could not match. The air smelled different, sweet and complex and utterly alien. He sat up slowly, expecting pain, expecting weakness, expecting the consequences of his wounds. But there was nothing. His shoulder moved freely. His back felt normal. He ran his hand over his skin and found only faint scars where deep cuts should have been. Healing technology. It had to be. He had heard stories about their medical abilities, how they could repair damage that human doctors would consider fatal. But where was he, and how had he gotten here? The door opened, and a female entered. She was older than the princess, her features sharp and commanding, her skin holding steady at a deep purple that spoke of absolute authority. She wore robes of black and gold that shimmered with every movement, and on her head sat a crown of twisted metal and glowing gems. Danny recognized her from the briefing files. This was Queen, ruler of the Ascendancy, one of the most powerful beings in the known galaxy. He tried to stand to bow to show proper respect, but his body would not cooperate. He sat frozen on the edge of the bed, staring at the Queen with wide eyes. She raised one hand, a gesture that seemed to say, "Stay where you are." Then she settled into a chair that had not been there a moment before, studying him with eyes that seemed to see through his skin to the thoughts beneath. "You are awake," she said. Her voice was like music, harmonic and layered, speaking directly into his mind even as the words reached his ears. "Good, I have been waiting to speak with you." Danny found his voice. "Your Majesty, where am I? What happened to my ship?" "Your vessel continues on its journey back to human space. You are aboard the Throne of Stars, my personal flagship. We are currently in the heart of the Ascendancy, many light years from where you were wounded." "I don't understand. Why am I here?" The Queen's skin shifted through colors that Danny could not read. "You saved my daughter's life. You threw yourself between her and death without hesitation, without thought for your own survival. Do you remember this?" "Yes." "Among your people, such an act would be rewarded with medals, perhaps promotion, certainly gratitude. You would be called a hero. Songs would be sung, and then life would continue as before." The Queen leaned forward, her eyes holding his. "Among my people, things are different." Danny felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. "What do you mean?" "When you placed yourself between Ha and the blade, when your blood spilled to protect her, you created a bond. An ancient bond, older than our civilization, older than memory itself. My daughter called out for protection in the way of our ancestors, and you answered. Your blood mixed with her power. The connection was formed. What kind of connection? The queen's expression was unreadable. Among there is no greater debt than a life saved. When that life belongs to royalty, the debt becomes something more, something binding. You are now tied to my daughter, and through her, to my house, to my family, to the ascendancy itself. Danny's mind raced. I don't understand what you're saying. Are you telling me I'm some kind of prisoner? I am telling you that you cannot leave. The bond will not allow it. If you try to return to human space, you will sicken, you will weaken. Eventually, you will die. The connection to Ha is part of you now, as essential as your heartbeat. That's impossible. I'm human. I don't have whatever biology creates these bonds. The queen smiled, and there was no warmth in it. You did not have it. You do now. My daughter's power changed you in the moment of bonding. You are still human, but you are also something more, something connected to us in ways that your science cannot explain. Danny stood up, his legs shaky but holding. I want to go home. I have a family. I have a career. You can't just keep me here because of some accident. It was not an accident. It was fate or destiny or simply the way the universe chose to unfold. I am sorry that this is not what you wanted, but I cannot change what is. The queen rose as well, towering over him with effortless grace. You will be given quarters suitable to your new status. You will want for nothing. In time, perhaps you will come to see this as a gift rather than a curse. And if I refuse, if I demand to be returned, then you will die slowly and painfully as the bond tears itself apart inside you. The queen's voice was matter-of-fact, without cruelty but without comfort either. I do not wish this for you. You saved my daughter. I owe you a debt of gratitude that can never be fully repaid, but I will not watch you destroy yourself out of stubbornness. She walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. My daughter wishes to see you. She has been waiting since we brought you aboard, refusing to eat or rest until she knew you would survive. I will send her to you if you are willing. Danny did not know what to say. He nodded, unable to find words. The queen left, and Danny sank back onto the bed, his mind spinning with everything he had learned. He was trapped, bound by alien magic or biology or something in between. His life as he knew it was over. And he had no idea what came next. The princess came to him an hour later. She entered the room like she was afraid it would bite her, her skin flickering with colors that Danny now recognized as guilt and sorrow and hope all mixed together. She wore simpler robes than before, plain white with silver trim, and her feet were bare against the glowing floor. May I come in? She asked, her voice soft. Danny almost laughed at the question. It's your ship, your kingdom, I'm the prisoner here. Ha flinched at the word prisoner, her skin flashing with pain colors. I am sorry, I am so sorry, I did not mean for this to happen. Your mother says I'm bound to you now, that I'll die if I try to leave. Yes, the princess moved closer, settling into the chair her mother had used. I called out in the old way when I saw the blade coming. It is instinct, something we cannot control when death is near. You answered with your blood, your willingness to die for me. The bond formed before I could stop it. What exactly does this bond do? Ha's skin shifted to softer colors, thoughtful and sad. It ties your life force to mine. You will feel what I feel, sense when I am in danger, know when I need you. The distance between us cannot be too great without causing you pain. Over time, the connection will deepen. You will begin to understand our language without learning it. You will sense the emotions of other. You will change. I'll become one of you. No, you will always be human, but you will be human with pieces of us woven through you. A bridge between species if you choose to see it that way. Danny ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration that felt utterly inadequate. I didn't choose any of this. I know, the princess's voice cracked slightly, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. You saved me. You did not hesitate, did not calculate, did not think about yourself. You simply acted. Among my people, such purity of spirit is rare and precious. I should be grateful, and I am. But I am also ashamed because my gratitude has cost you everything. Danny looked at her, really looked, and saw not a princess or an alien or a symbol of his imprisonment. He saw a young woman carrying guilt that was crushing her, trying to apologize for something she could not undo. "Tell me about the assassin," he said, changing the subject. "Why did he want to kill you?" Ha's skin darkened with anger and fear. There are factions within the Ascendancy who believe that contact with humans is a mistake. They see your species as dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to our ancient ways. My mother has pushed for peace and cooperation. They see her as weak, and me as the symbol of that weakness. So killing you would have been a message. Yes, a message that the old ways cannot protect the royal house, a message that change will be met with blood. The princess looked down at her hands. They will try again, they always try again. Danny felt something shift inside him, some protective instinct that had nothing to do with alien bonds or mystical connections. He had always been a protector. It was who he was at his core. And looking at this young princess, this frightened girl carrying the weight of empires on her shoulders, he felt that instinct surge. "Then we'll have to be ready," he said. Ha looked up, surprise coloring her skin. I'm stuck here apparently, might as well make myself useful." Danny managed a small smile. "Besides, protecting people is what I do, what I've always done. If I have to be bound to someone, at least it's someone who needs protecting." The princess stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, her skin began to shift through colors that Danny instinctively recognized as hope and wonder, and something like affection. "You are a strange human," she said softly. "I've been told that before." The following weeks were the strangest of Danny's life. He was given quarters that would have made an Earth billionaire jealous. The rooms were vast and beautiful, filled with furniture that adjusted to his preferences, windows that showed views of distant stars and nebulae, and technology that anticipated his needs before he knew he had them. Servants came and went, bringing food and drink and anything else he might want. The meals were strange at first, cuisine designed to be compatible with human biology, but he grew to enjoy the complex flavors and textures. The drinks were even better, wines and juices from fruits that had never seen Earth's sun. But luxury was not freedom, and Danny never forgot that he was a prisoner, no matter how gilded his cage. He began to learn about his captors. They were ancient beyond human understanding, their civilization stretching back millions of years. They had survived wars and plagues and catastrophes that would have destroyed lesser species. They had built wonders that made human achievements look like children's toys. But they were also rigid, bound by traditions and customs that had calcified over the ages. Their society was divided into houses and factions, each with its own interests and agendas. The queen held power, but that power was not absolute. She ruled through consensus and compromise, balancing competing forces with skill that Danny slowly came to appreciate. The princess visited him every day. At first, their conversations were awkward, two strangers from different worlds trying to find common ground. But gradually, a friendship began to form. Ha was curious about humans in a way that went beyond diplomatic interest. She wanted to know about Earth's history, its art, its music, its stories. She asked questions that no one else had ever asked Danny, questions about his childhood, his dreams, his fears. In return, she told him about the Ascendancy. She described the wonders of her, the crystal forests that sang in the wind, the oceans that glowed with bioluminescent life, the cities that floated on clouds of anti-gravity. She told him about her mother, her tutors, her siblings scattered across the stars. She also told him about her loneliness. "Being a princess is not what the stories say," she admitted one evening as they sat together in Danny's quarters watching a nebula drift past the windows. "Everyone wants something from you. Everyone has an agenda. It is hard to know who to trust, who is genuine, who is simply playing a game." "Is that why you haven't bonded with anyone before?" Danny asked. "Because you couldn't trust them." Ha's skin flickered with surprise. "You know about bonding customs." "I've been reading, trying to understand what happened to me." He paused. "From what I've read, most bond by choice. They select partners carefully, negotiate terms, build relationships over centuries. What happened with us wasn't normal." "No," the princess looked away. "What happened with us was something out of legend. The emergency bond, the blood sacrifice, the instant connection. It has not occurred in thousands of years. My mother says it is a sign. A sign of what? She will not say, but she looks at you with interest now, not just gratitude. She is planning something, though I do not know what. Danny filed that information away for later consideration. The Queen made him nervous with her ancient eyes and unreadable expression. He trusted her about as far as he could throw a starship. But Ha was different. She was open and honest in a way that seemed almost naive for a princess. She told him things she probably should not have told anyone, secrets about her family and her house and her fears. And Danny found himself telling her things in return. About his childhood on a colony world, tough and poor but filled with love. About his parents, both gone now, who had taught him that protecting others was the highest calling. About his years in the security forces, the people he had saved and the ones he had lost. The bond between them grew, and not just the mystical connection that tied their life forces together. A real bond, built on shared conversations and growing understanding, and the simple fact that they both needed someone to talk to. Danny began to realize that he was in trouble. He was starting to care about her, not as a duty or an obligation, but as something real. When she smiled, he felt warmth spread through his chest. When she was sad, he wanted to fix whatever was wrong. When she was afraid, every instinct he had screamed at him to protect her. He told himself it was the bond, the alien magic messing with his emotions, but deep down he suspected it was something more. 3 months after his capture, Danny was summoned to see the Queen. The throne room was vast, a cathedral of light and crystal that made human architecture look primitive. Sat on a throne that seemed to grow from the floor itself, surrounded by advisors and guards and courtiers who fell silent as Danny entered. He walked the length of the room with his head held high, refusing to show fear. The Queen watched him approach with those ancient eyes, her expression revealing nothing. "You have adapted well to life among us," she said when he reached the base of the throne. "My daughter speaks highly of you. I've tried to make the best of the situation." "Indeed," the Queen gestured, and the courtiers, flowing out of the room like water until only the two of them remained. "I wish to speak with you about your future." "My future is already decided, isn't it? Bound to your daughter until death. The bond decides where you must be. It does not decide who you will become." The Queen rose from her throne and descended the steps to stand before him only a few feet away. "You have a choice to make, Danny Cole. You can be a prisoner, resenting your cage, counting the days until your heart fails, or you can be something more." "What kind of something more?" "A member of my house. A true member with rights and responsibilities and a place in our society. The bond already connects you to us in one way. I am offering to connect you in others, to give you purpose and meaning beyond simple survival." Danny frowned. What would that mean? What would I have to do? "Protect my daughter, not as a servant, but as a partner. Be her guardian, her advisor, her voice among humans when she needs one. She will rule the ascendancy someday, and she will need someone at her side who understands both our peoples. Someone who can bridge the gap between ancient and young, between and human." "You want me to be some kind of ambassador?" "I want you to be what you already are, a protector, a bridge, someone who sees the best in others and brings it forth." The Queen's skin shifted to colors that spoke of sincerity. "I did not choose you for my daughter, fate did, but having observed you these past months, I believe fate chose wisely." Danny thought about the offer. It was better than being a prisoner, certainly. It would give him purpose, something to do with the years that stretched ahead of him. But it would also bind him more tightly to the ascendancy, make him complicit in their politics and their power games. "What happens to humans who become part of houses?" he asked. "Are there others?" "A few, not many. Most could not adapt to our ways." The Queen paused. "But you are different. You have the soul of a guardian, the heart of a protector. These are things we value highly. You would not be asked to become. You would be asked to be the best version of human in service of something larger than yourself." Danny looked at her, this ancient queen who held his fate in her hands, and made a decision. "I want to train," he said. "Not just as a bodyguard. I want to learn everything. Your language, your culture, your combat forms. If I'm going to protect your daughter, I want to do it properly." The queen smiled, and for the first time there was warmth in it. "That can be arranged." The training was brutal. Danny had thought he was in good shape. 7 years of security work had honed his body and his skills, but combat made human martial arts look like playground games. His instructor was an ancient warrior named, who had served the royal house for over 1,000 years. He was silent and utterly without mercy. On the first day of training, he broke Danny's arm in 3 places, then waited patiently while the medical technology healed the damage. "Again," was all he said. They fought with their whole bodies, using their flexible spines and extra joints to move in ways that seemed impossible. They could strike from angles that Danny could not anticipate, dodge attacks that should have been certain hits, flow around defenses like water around stone. Danny lost every match for the first month. He lost while bruised and bleeding. He lost while gasping for breath. He lost while every muscle in his body screamed for rest. But he did not quit. He could not quit. The princess was counting on him, and he had made a promise. Slowly, painfully, he began to improve. He learned to anticipate the strange angles of attacks. He learned to use his human strength and solidity as advantages rather than limitations. He learned to think 3 moves ahead, to read his opponent's intentions from the subtle colors of their skin. By the end of the 3rd month, he managed to land a hit on. Just one, a glancing blow to the instructor's shoulder, but it was enough. The ancient warrior stepped back and looked at Danny with something like respect. "You learn fast for a human." "I have good motivation." The princess, skin flickered with amusement. "She watches your training sessions, you know, from the observation gallery above." Danny felt heat rise to his face. "I didn't know that." "She believes in you. That is rare for one of her station. Do not disappoint her." Danny nodded, and the training continued. While his body learned to fight, his mind learned to understand. Language lessons filled his mornings, taught by patient instructors who repeated phrases until Danny could speak them without thinking. History lessons filled his afternoons, endless stories of wars and treaties, and the rise and fall of great houses. He learned about the factions that threatened the Queen's vision of peace. The House of Crimson Shadow, led by a lord named Eth, who believed that humans should be conquered rather than befriended. The Temple of Ancient Ways, whose priests preached that contact with younger species was blasphemy. The Merchant Princes, who saw profit in conflict and chaos. He learned about the assassination attempt that had nearly killed Ha. The attacker had been a member of the Crimson Shadow, a fanatic who had volunteered for the mission knowing he would not survive. The blade he had used was a relic, blessed by the priests of the ancient ways, designed to kill royalty and anyone who protected them. Danny had nearly died from that blade. Only the princess's emergency bond had saved him, pouring her own life force into his wounds as she called for help. "She almost killed herself saving you," told him one day. "The bond drains both parties equally. If you had died, she would have followed." "Why didn't anyone tell me this?" "Because you did not need more guilt weighing you down. You needed to focus on your training." The instructor paused. "But now you should know. When you protect her, you protect yourself. When she protects you, she risks everything. The bond makes you partners in a way that goes beyond duty." Danny thought about this for a long time. Partners, not master and servant, not prisoner and captor, but partners. 2 lives intertwined by fate and choice, and the simple truth that neither could survive without the other. It changed the way he thought about everything. 6 months after his capture, Danny attended his first formal court function as a member of the royal house. The gathering was held in a hall that made the throne room look modest, filled with representatives from 100 worlds and 1,000 factions. Lights floated in the air without visible support. Music played from instruments that had no musicians. The wealth on display was staggering, enough to fund human civilization for centuries. Danny wore robes that the Queen's tailors had designed for him, human in style, but made from materials that shifted color with his movements. At his hip hung a blade that had given him, a weapon that had been carried by guardians of the royal house for 10,000 years. Ha stood beside him, radiant in silver and gold, her skin calm and steady with the colors of confidence. But Danny could feel her nervousness through the bond, a trembling uncertainty that she hid from everyone else. "You look beautiful," he murmured, leaning close so only she could hear. Her skin flickered with pleasure. "You look acceptable for a human." "High praise." They moved through the crowd together, the princess greeting nobles and ambassadors while Danny watched for threats. The stares followed them everywhere, curious and hostile and fascinated. A human walking beside the princess as if he belonged there. A human wearing the robes and blade of a royal guardian. It was unprecedented, and the court did not know what to make of it. Lord Eth approached them midway through the evening. He was tall even for his skin holding steady at a deep red that spoke of barely contained aggression. His robes were the black of his house, trimmed with silver that caught the light like frozen lightning. He moved with the predatory grace of someone who had killed before and would gladly kill again. "Princess," he said, inclining his head in the minimum gesture of respect. "How charming to see you with your pet." Danny felt his hand move toward his blade, but Ha's touch on his arm stopped him. "Lord Eth, how kind of you to notice my guardian. He is quite skilled, I am told. Perhaps you would like a demonstration sometime." The Lord's skin flickered with anger. "Guardians are meant to be. This creature is an insult to our traditions." "This creature saved my life when your traditions failed." Ha's voice was calm, but Danny could feel the anger burning through the bond. "Perhaps your house should focus less on who guards me and more on why guards are necessary." Eth's skin darkened further. "Be careful, princess. Your mother's protection will not last forever. When she is gone, you will need allies among the great houses. Alienating them with human pets is unwise." "Thank you for your concern. I will consider it carefully." Ha turned away, dismissing him with a gesture that was just barely polite. "Come, Danny. I believe there are more pleasant conversations to be had elsewhere." They walked away, leaving Eth standing alone with murder in his eyes. "That was dangerous," Danny said quietly. "He's powerful and you just humiliated him." "He needed to know that I am not afraid." Ha's skin was calm again, but her voice was tight. "My mother has protected me my whole life, kept me safe from the court's games and intrigues, but she will not live forever. Someday I will have to face them alone." "Not alone," Danny said. The princess looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "No," she agreed softly, "not alone." The rest of the evening passed without incident, but Danny remained alert. He had seen the look in Ed's eyes, the cold calculation behind the anger. The Lord was not finished with them. He was only waiting for the right moment to strike. Danny would be ready when that moment came. A year passed, then another. Danny became a familiar sight in the Ascendancy, the human guardian who walked beside the princess like a shadow. He attended functions and negotiations, listened to debates in languages he now understood fluently, watched the complex dance of politics with growing comprehension. He also continued to train, pushing his body and mind to new limits. No longer broke his bones during practice sessions. Instead, they sparred as equals, trading blows and blocks in patterns that looked like dance to outside observers but were deadly serious. The bond between him and Ha deepened in ways neither of them fully understood. He knew when she was sad before she showed it. She knew when he was worried before he spoke. Sometimes they could communicate without words at all, just feelings and impressions that passed between them like electricity. Danny tried not to think about what this meant. He tried to keep his feelings professional, to maintain the distance appropriate between a guardian and his charge. But every day, it became harder. Every smile she gave him made his heart race. Every time she touched his arm or leaned close to whisper a comment, he had to fight to keep his composure. He was falling in love with her, deeply, hopelessly, impossibly in love. And the worst part was, he suspected she felt the same. It showed in the way she looked at him when she thought he was not watching. It showed in the excuses she made to spend time with him, the private dinners and long conversations that had nothing to do with diplomacy or duty. It showed in the colors of her skin when he entered a room, the subtle brightening that she could not quite control. But neither of them spoke of it. There were too many barriers, too many reasons why it could never work. He was human, she was. He was a guardian, she was a princess. Their bond had been forged in emergency, not choice, and acting on feelings that might be artificial seemed wrong. So they circled each other, growing closer and staying apart, connected by fate but separated by fear. Until the night, everything changed. It began with an attack on the throne of stars. Danny was sleeping when the alarms woke him, the screaming sirens that meant the ship was under assault. He was on his feet and moving before his conscious mind caught up, grabbing his blade and running toward the princess's quarters. The corridors were chaos. Crew members rushed past him, their skin flickering with panic colors. Explosions shook the deck beneath his feet. Somewhere in the distance, weapons' fire crackled and hissed. He reached Ha's door and found it already open. She stood inside, dressed for battle in light armor that hugged her form, a blade in each hand. Her skin was steady with the colors of determination. "They're boarding," she said. "Crimson Shadow ships. They must have been hiding in the nebula waiting for us." "Where's your guard detail?" "Fighting at the main corridors. I sent them where they were needed." She met his eyes. "We need to get to my mother." They moved through the ship together, a unit of two that flowed around obstacles and through danger. Danny had never fought beside Ha before, not really, but the bond made them partners in a way that training could not have achieved. He knew where she would move before she moved. She knew where he would strike before he struck. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. They encountered their first enemies in the corridor outside the Queen's chambers. A squad of Crimson Shadow warriors, their black robes splattered with blood, their blades already stained. Danny did not hesitate. He launched himself into the group, his blades singing through the air, taking down the first attacker before they even knew he was there. Ha was right behind him, her twin blades weaving patterns of death that the warriors could not counter. It was over in seconds. 8 enemies lay dead or dying on the floor. Danny and Ha stood among them, breathing hard but uninjured. They pressed on. The Queen's chambers had been breached. The doors hung twisted and torn from their frames, and inside the sounds of combat echoed off the walls. Danny charged through the opening, Ha at his side, and found himself in the middle of a desperate battle. Queen stood at the center of the room, her guards forming a circle around her, fighting off waves of attackers. She wielded a weapon of her own, a staff that crackled with energy, striking down anyone who got too close. But there were too many enemies, and the circle was shrinking. Danny and Ha hit the attackers from behind like a hammer striking an anvil. The surprise assault threw the Crimson Shadow warriors into disarray, breaking their formation, giving the Queen's guards the opening they needed. The fight that followed was brutal and ugly. Danny took wounds that burned like fire, cuts and strikes that his armor could not fully stop. But he kept fighting, kept killing, kept pushing forward until the last enemy fell. Silence settled over the chamber, broken only by the groans of the wounded and the heavy breathing of the survivors. The Queen lowered her staff and looked at Danny with an expression he could not read. Her skin was shifting through colors too fast to follow, emotions piling on emotions until they blurred together. "You came," she said simply. "I promised to protect your daughter. That includes protecting you." Skin settled on a color that Danny recognized as deep, sincere gratitude. "Tonight, you have proven your worth beyond any doubt. The house of my ancestors owes you a debt that can never be repaid." Danny opened his mouth to respond, but the words never came. His vision blurred. His knees buckled. The wounds he had ignored during the fighting suddenly demanded attention, and his body decided that now was the time to acknowledge them. He fell, and the last thing he heard before unconsciousness took him was Ha screaming his name. Danny woke in a medical chamber, surrounded by machines that hummed with healing technology. Ha sat beside his bed, her hand wrapped around his, her skin pale with exhaustion. "You're awake," she said, and her voice cracked with relief. "The healers said you would recover, but I was so afraid." "What happened? Is the ship safe?" The attack was repelled. My mother is unharmed thanks to you. Ha's grip on his hand tightened. You almost died again because of me. That's my job. It's not just a job anymore. The princess's skin shifted through colors that Danny had never seen before, complex and beautiful and filled with meaning. It has not been just a job for a long time. Danny felt his heart racing, and it had nothing to do with his wounds. Ha! I know all the reasons why I should not say this. I know the complications, the politics, the thousand barriers between us. But I almost lost you tonight, and I cannot stay silent any longer. She leaned closer, her amber eyes glistening with tears. I love you, Danny Cole. I have loved you for so long that I cannot remember what it felt like before. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and fragile and infinitely precious. Danny reached up with his free hand and touched her face, feeling the soft warmth of her alien skin beneath his fingertips. I love you too, he said. I've been trying so hard not to, but I can't help it. You're everything to me. Ha made a sound that was half laugh and half sob. We are fools, you and I fools who fell in love across the stars. I can think of worse things to be. She kissed him then, and it was like nothing Danny had ever experienced. The bond between them flared to life, carrying emotions back and forth until he could not tell where his feelings ended and hers began. Joy and relief and love and hope all mingled together in a rush that left him breathless. When they finally separated, Danny was smiling despite his wounds. Your mother is going to kill me. My mother knew before either of us did. She has been waiting for this moment, I think. Ha's skin shifted to the warm gold of happiness. She will give us her blessing, I am certain of it. Danny was not so certain, but at that moment he did not care. He had Ha beside him, her hand in his, her love warming him from the inside out. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The Queen summoned them both the following day. Danny stood before the throne, Ha at his side, waiting for judgment. His wounds had healed overnight, medicine working its miracles once again, but new anxieties had taken their place. What he and Ha had admitted to each other could not be taken back. The consequences would ripple through both their lives. Studied them with those ancient, unreadable eyes. Her skin held steady at a neutral purple, giving nothing away. My daughter tells me that you have declared your feelings for each other, the Queen said finally. Is this true? Danny nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. And you understand what this means, the complications it will cause, the enemies it will create. I understand that I love her. Everything else we'll figure out together. The Queen's skin flickered with something that might have been amusement. A very human answer. She rose from her throne and descended the steps until she stood before them. When I first brought you here, I saw you as an accident, a complication, an unexpected consequence of my daughter's instinctive cry for help. Danny waited, unsure where this was going. But as I watched you adapt, grow, and become someone worthy of your position, I began to see something else. I began to see possibility. The Queen reached out and took Danny's hand in one of hers, Ha's in the other. My daughter will rule the ascendancy someday. She will need someone beside her who understands both our peoples, who can speak for humanity in our councils and for us among humans. She will need someone who has proven his loyalty beyond any doubt. Her skin shifted to the deep gold of formal declaration. I give you my blessing, Danny Cole. I welcome you into my family not as a prisoner or a guardian, but as a son. May your love strengthen both our peoples and bridge the gap between the stars. Danny felt tears prick his eyes, emotions overwhelming his usual composure. Thank you, he managed. Thank you for everything. Smiled, and for once it reached her eyes. Thank me by keeping my daughter safe. Thank me by building the future I have dreamed of but will not live to see. Thank me by proving that humanity and can be more than allies, more than friends, more than any relationship that has come before. She released their hands and stepped back. Now go. You have much to plan and little time. The attack on this ship was a declaration of war. The Crimson Shadow will not stop until my daughter is dead or they are destroyed. You must be ready for what comes next. Danny and Ha bowed, then turned and walked from the throne room hand in hand. Behind them, the Queen watched them go, her skin shifting through colors that spoke of hope and fear and the terrible weight of knowing what the future might bring. The war had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. Outside the throne room, in the winding corridors of the Throne of Stars, Danny stopped and pulled Ha into his arms. She melted against him, her head resting on his shoulder, her skin warm and shifting with contented colors. "I thought she would forbid it," Danny admitted. "I thought she would see me as beneath you. My mother sees more than anyone gives her credit for. She knew this was coming long before we did." Ha pulled back enough to look into his eyes. "She also knows that I have never been happier than when I am with you. My safety, my happiness, my future, they are all tied to you now. She could not forbid what is already part of me." Danny kissed her forehead, marveling at how natural it felt. "So what happens now? Your mother mentioned war, the Crimson Shadow. What are we facing?" "Enemies who will stop at nothing to prevent our peoples from uniting. Enemies who see love between human and as abomination, alliance as weakness, change as death." Ha's skin darkened with anger. "They will come for us again. They will keep coming until they succeed or until we destroy them." "Then we destroy them." The princess looked at him with something like wonder in her eyes. "You say that so simply, as if it is the most obvious thing in the world." "It is obvious. You're mine now and I'm yours. Anyone who threatens you threatens me. Anyone who tries to tear us apart becomes my enemy." Danny's voice was steady, his conviction absolute. "I spent my whole life looking for something worth fighting for, something worth dying for. Now I've found it. I'm not letting go." Ha's skin bloomed with colors of love and admiration and fierce pride. "Then we face the future together, my human guardian, my partner, my love." "Together," Danny agreed. "Always." They walked on through the ship, two figures from different worlds bound by fate and choice, and the simple truth that love could bridge any distance, overcome any obstacle, unite any peoples willing to believe. Behind them, the stars wheeled in their eternal dance, indifferent to the small dramas of mortal lives. But small or not, those dramas mattered. They shaped civilizations, changed histories, built futures that no one could predict. Danny Cole had come to the stars as a simple security officer, expecting nothing more than a career of quiet service. He had found something infinitely more precious, a purpose, a love, a place where he truly belonged. And he would fight with everything he had to protect it. The story was far from over. War loomed on the horizon, enemies gathered in the shadows, and challenges beyond imagining waited in the days ahead. But for now, in this moment, walking beside the woman he loved through the corridors of an alien ship, Danny allowed himself to feel hope. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And together, they would prevail.